Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. We've had a lot of heavy rain. I suspect we're going to get some more, but it looks like the roof extends enough to keep the seeds dry. That's good stuff. We like that. Unfortunately, the rain does bash things down, and it's knocked a couple of the flowers down, the weight of the rain and all that sort of stuff. Out in the garden, we have signs of autumn. What goes with autumn? Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Right, over here, because I'm going to show you something in a minute, in this corner of the garden, the planted border, is a jumble. Why is it a jumble? It's a jumble because of that fuchsia. Now, I like that fuchsia a lot. It's hardy, dies right back in the winter, but comes back again. It's a hardy plant. But it's got to come out of that corner because it takes up too much space. And there's lots of plants have been planted all in underneath here that you can't see. Of course, they're not getting much light at all. So at an appropriate time, I'm going to dig it out. And we'll get to that again in a minute. Right, the Cymbidiums. Now we have a problem. I think it's one night and one night only, but I will check. Friday night into Saturday morning, we are highly likely to get a frost. And it might only be for that one morning, but obviously during Friday, these are going to have to come in. Now Hannah's down this weekend, so I'm out first thing Saturday morning to pick her up. We're then off to the Bournemouth show, and she'll be here Sunday. I'll take her back later on Sunday. We will probably be doing some work on the garden on Sunday if it's not raining. So having the Cymbidiums out of the way might be a good idea, because one of the things we'll want to do is trim these edges with the strimmer. So anyway, these are going to have to come in sometime on Friday. They've been in once before when it was threatened to get really cold out here, so it's not a big deal. I just take those lower ones off, and then just I have to go round the house because there isn't room to get through the door with this in the door, and I have to lift it over the step. Well, you saw me do it. I did a video getting it out again, but that's no problem. But yes, they're going to have to come in. Right, back to the fuchsia. Now, I was in the area yesterday, so I called into one of the DIY centres in that area where I was, home base, and I remembered that they had a sale on for garden containers. This is quite a large container, and I think it will hold that fuchsia quite nicely. Now, the size of the fuchsia bush itself at this point in time is much larger than I will allow it to grow next year. So when I dig it out, it's going to go in here. This was £9. Now, £9 for a container that big is pretty good going. And this was the only one I could find that didn't have a chip on the rim. Now, they're selling off old stock basically because they've got some new designs coming in. So they're going incredibly cheap. So you might not get exactly what you want, but quite honestly, if you're after some ceramic type, weighty, this is quite heavy, plant containers probably for next year, or maybe for some winter colour, put some pansies in or something. If you're after something like that, home base is a really good place to go at the moment. If you've got a big store near you, they are selling off stuff very cheap. As I said, £9 for a pot that size is pretty good going. They had other colours as well, not just blue. But generally speaking, the pots in the garden have a blue theme, with a couple of exceptions that I inherited. So this is going to match in with other stuff. So the fuchsia is going to go in there. When it comes up next year and it starts to grow, when it gets to a certain height, I will be taking the tips off of the new growths to force them to branch. So next year we will have a much more compact bush, and by forcing those side branches a much lower height so that the wind doesn't blow the whole thing over, and it'll be denser, and when it blooms, the blooms will be much tighter together. It's going to look much better than a straggly bush in the corner of the garden, and it'll be out of the way of that excuse me, section of the planted border. Right, we have a new bloom, one of my odont types. This is tiger tail, I believe. No, it's not, because if it was tiger tail it would have... Where's the label gone? All of my odonts have got labels. Why has this one not got a label in it? Ah, I wonder if it was one that I split and didn't do a new label. Never mind. It's one of my odont types. It might be tiger tail, it might not be. When these open, they open a deep colour, and then they colour change. So this lip, the patterning, and the background colour behind the red will change colour as these age. This is quite a nice spike. It's got quite a few blooms on to open up, and who knows, they might last long enough to go into our show, which is, so it's only a few weeks away now, so this one should be okay to go to the show. It's not the best looking plant, but the tatty leaf over here can be cut off. I don't think I've got any bugs on this one. No, don't think so. Well, I'd obviously have a quick look before I took it in. But I won't have much else to go to the show, so, and I feel guilty if I don't take anything at all. We'll have a look round. I'm hoping this will be able to go to the show. I don't think these blooms are very long lasting, but this one hasn't even opened yet, and then it's got the two follow-on buds. And this one is swollen up enough that I think it will open. So hopefully that can go in one state or another. And there won't be much else. There won't be much else. My Victoria Regina is it's a tatty plant. It's not worth it. It looks awful as a plant, even though the blooms look nice. Those two clusters are merging together, so that's going to be an absolute mass of blooms on that side, and then we've got the other cluster up there. So, but that, I don't think that can go to the show. If Blackjack is still looking good, then that will go, because the plant's also very good. That's probably about it. There isn't anything else that's got buds on at the moment. So there's some Restrepia blooms around, but there never seems to be enough blooms to make a good display, if you know what I mean. If a reasonable size Restrepia has a dozen blooms on, it would be worth putting in, but it's just never enough. A smattering, that's all there is. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show you, was this new bloom that's opened up. I'll do a pop-up for the name, because I can look up the picture. I always store pictures away, and I can have a look at the name that goes with it. It's either just an odont type hybrid with no name, or it's tiger tail. It's one or the other. The other one has got a very strange name, a Cymbidium or something it is. The other, there's three in a set that I got roughly around the same time. Anyway, that's that, and my new pot, which will be for that fuchsia, to enable me to dig it out of the ground and leave that corner as a more open space, so that the plants that are in there get more of a look in, and obviously will be more visible because they're not covered up by a large bush. And then the fuchsia itself, I'll have choices of places where I can put it, because it's in a tub, you know, it's in a pot, so it can be moved around, doesn't even have to stay in the same place. So we'll see how we go. And the other thing is, I've ordered some feet, some little, they're rubber pads basically that go underneath pots outside and raise them up off of the ground, because I'm worried that if they don't drain very well and they're sat on the ground, the water can't get out. They can end up getting waterlogged and the roots rot, and it can actually kill the plant. So who knows, I might go back and get some more. But then I can't think what I would use them for. I haven't got anything else in the garden that needs to go in a pot. And every pot that gets added to the garden is something else I have to water. You see what I mean? You know, I've already got quite a lot of garden tubs and the gravel beds that can get incredibly dry and need to go round with a hose now and again, and the bonsai. I've got enough to do in the garden, so I don't want to get too much more. Is that the rain again? Or is it just the wind? No, it's the rain again. If ever I want to know if it's actually raining or not, I just look at the bird bath. It's either got spots in it or it hasn't. Anyway, that's all for today. This is still holding out well. This has done very well and lasted very well. I'm well pleased with this time round. It's done very well. This is its last spike, so these will be the last blooms. This spidery nonsense has finished all of this spike's going over now, starting to go, but it's pushed up another one. So we will have a few more blooms, you know, fresh ones with the nice bright colours, because they get quite dull as they fade. And also the Shari baby, that's lasting well. There's two very good spikes this time round, you know, really long spikes. So that's done well this time round. So there we go. We will have to put up with the Cymbidiums in here for the weekend, and then depending on how the weather is, they can go outside. They are getting an awful lot of rain. They're getting very wet and shorter days. It's not very warm. They're not drying out. So I'm wondering whether they ought to just come in and stay in now. Give them a chance to dry off, and then I can, you know, because when they're like this and it's been raining, I haven't put any feed in them for some time because they're soaking wet. To put feed in them, you know, adds more water in. So I think they might come in permanently this weekend. We shall see. I'll have a think, because it's not October yet. I was hoping to get a couple of weeks into October first, but we'll see. I'll have a think, and maybe they'll be coming in permanently, in which case there's a bit of rearranging to do. The big Disa tray and the smaller Disa tray, they're both going on the bottom shelf of the staging when it comes in. The Cymbidiums that are wired onto the top of the staging, they'll get dewired, which means they can be rearranged and the space used a bit better, which means possibly at least one or maybe two of the ones on the lower staging can come up onto the top shelf, which will make better use of it. If I can do that, then that will leave one to go somewhere else, and that will probably be the real miniature, my little showgirl. So these are destined to go on the bottom shelf of that staging. These don't need any attention. Once a week I've got to change the water. That's it. They won't get touched until well into next year, when the new spikes start to come. And then they might end up staying where they are anyway in these trays, so we shall see. But yeah, the fact that they need minimum attention, putting them on that bottom shelf, I'm happy with that, so we will work with that. And you know, I said I was going to take, when I want to change the water, lift those out and put them in the spare tray, yeah, and then put them back in again. Well, that was a bit silly, wasn't it? Having got them all out into the spare tray, I topped that tray up with the clean water and just emptied the other one out. So basically I will swap trays when I need to change the water. So I only need to move the plants once. It seems a bit silly taking them out and then putting them all back in when they're already in a perfectly good tray. So that saved me quite a bit of time as well. So but yeah, I had to get a jug to get the water out of this tray. I had to get a jug and put it into my black bucket that I use for my RO unit, because although I could lift it weight wise, it started to slop and I could see me getting a good splash all over the floor sort of thing. So it was easier to just use a jug to empty it out and then just give it a bit swill round, give it a bit of a clean, and well, effectively put it to one side ready for next time. And I've done the same with this one. These are the spare trays that were in use, and I've joined two together so that it's a lot stronger now and I can actually lift it without it bending and possibly cracking. So, and I've got spare ones over there, so I'll do the same with those. So then that will just make life a bit easier dealing with these until we get into next year, when hopefully we can look forward to some nice Disa blooms, because they are pretty spectacular. The growth on the plants is definitely showing. These plants are moving, they're not static, they are getting bigger. And if you look here too, things are actually growing. So they haven't finished growing for this year, so I think potting them on and doing all that a little bit earlier than I was told is going to be worthwhile, because if these are growing, they're also putting out roots. So they're becoming more established before the really short days kick in. I mean, we have gone past the autumn equinox now, so the nights are now longer than the days, and that will progress until such time as the orchids respond by slowing right down, and in some cases stopping growing altogether, because there just isn't enough daylight. It's not the quality of the light, although it is to a degree, because you get a lot more cloudier days through our winter and wet days, and the sun doesn't come round into this area, you know, it doesn't come into this part of the garden. But it's bright light nonetheless, but the days are just too short. There's not enough of it. You see what I mean? So it's all very well having bright light, but if it's only 9 hours, it's just 2 or 3 hours too short. So anyway, my big maple, difficult to imagine given the size of the pot and the weight of that. With the strong winds we've had recently, that actually blew over and landed on my Sarracenias, and actually broke quite a few of the taller ones off. Actually bent them and broke them. So the whole tree fell over. That's only ever happened once. And it happened because we had a northeast wind. That means it comes in over the shed and hits the house. And because there's a corner to the house, it funnels all the wind down into this, what is effectively an alleyway, and straight onto the tree, and it just blew it over. And we've never had a strong wind come from that direction before. So we can do without that, thank you very much. Anyway, that's showing some nice tinges of autumn as well. This one always has good autumn colour. So anyway, I will leave it at that for today. Lots of bits and pieces. There's a section of this video ought to have been a separate garden video really, but I thought it was too small an amount to actually do as a separate video, so I've done it as a combined video, mainly orchid stuff, but with a bit of garden thrown in. And I don't know whether I can zoom in on that from here, whether I get close enough, but there's a white butterfly on the buddleia, despite it only just stopped raining. I doubt if that will let me zoom in. Probably go out of focus. There we go. On the lower of the 3 blooms. Yeah, right on the edge there. Though that would be one of the generic cabbage whites, as they're endearingly known. But I don't need to go out to see what that is. That is a small white. There's also, in that set of 3, there's a small white, a large white and a green veined white, and they're all collectively known as cabbage whites because their caterpillars feed on members of the brassica family. Cabbages. Whoops, wandered off a bit. Oh, and it's turned around sideways, we can't see it anyway. Anyway, just remember to zoom out again, because otherwise I'll wonder what's going on next time I turn the camera on. And I will keep my eye on the bird feeder, but the only activity so far is a robin. There might be 2, but there's a robin comes onto the bird table regular. So we've got 1 visitor so far, and not a sign of any others. Not even sort of landing on the roof to take a look. So not a sign yet. But maybe if we get a cold snap, it might... The trouble is there's still plenty of food around for the birds. There's lots of the natural seeds around. You know, seed heads in people's gardens, certainly out in the countryside, you know, the summer blooms have all gone to seed. There's plenty of food around, and it hasn't got cold enough to whack up and wipe out all the insects yet. So they've got plenty of food around. They don't need to come to bird feeders yet. But hopefully, you know, as time goes on and that food starts becoming short, perhaps we'll get some visitors. But I will keep my eye out. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.